Uh, did we, uh, I lost you again? All right, so what this, worry about the other columns later, but essentially we have a hypothetical good or demand curve, and the y-axis is the price of the good, and the x-axis is the quantity demanded. And think of this, as an individual demand first. Um, so if this is like let's see, we have a max of 100. Let's say this is like the price of um, what's around this range? Let's say this is like the price of um, like video games or something. Let's say these are video games at different prices, and so the price of this video game could be either go from 0 to 100. And as you can see, like as the price is higher, this individual wants to buy less of it because it's more expensive. And then when the price goes down to 80 or something, the individual would buy more. And so this is the case for pretty much all goods, is that this is the demand curve, and then when the price of that good goes up, um, the amount the individual would buy goes down. And when the price goes down, they can afford more given their budget and income. Uh, the quantity demanded would go up. So this is just a simple um, hypothetical relationship saying that when price goes up, the amount someone wants to buy goes down. And when price goes down, the amount someone would prefer to buy goes up. Okay?
It kind of reflect now, right? Like in an inflationary, everything's so goddamn expensive. Like, I mean, I'm assuming this graph is still accurate, but price of a number one at a fast food joint is like $20,
Yeah,
but we still buy it. I mean,
that's a good question, and we're gonna get into that, why some things change with the price, others and more than others. But yeah, that's so I and first of all, this is just a like an actual domain curve wouldn't work like a straight line like this. It would be like different points. So it would be something like um at a price of 100, like this person buys one. At a price of 80, this person buys, like 22. But it'd be kind of a plot of points where you would assume a hypothetical downward sloping curve, but it wouldn't be perfectly straight like this one. So, but the law of demand should hold because, like, if let's say, let's just use an example of like um, after COVID, like groceries have gone up. Let's say like what's something in the like eggs. Eggs have gone up from maybe you could before COVID you could buy them for $2 a dozen, and now maybe you could buy them for six, depending on which ones you want to buy. So eggs have gone up quite a bit, and the comment was right. We're still buying them pretty much at the same rate. Now, this would probably have to control for this is just a one-time thing. So my guess would be that um, over time, you would have some adjustments in income and adjustments of like before COVID, your amount you're willing to pay for eggs would be something like $5. Now you've probably adjusted your expectations, hopefully got a boosted income, or hopefully just offset it with some other things, just knowing that stuff's more expensive. So think of it this way, like if you went to the store today, um, and you're expecting to pay like $6 for eggs, and you go in there and you see the cheapest egg is like $25 a dozen. um, you're probably not gonna buy it, right? Unless you're like, I have to have eggs, like I gotta make this, like I have a date, I gotta make these cupcakes or something, or I don't know how desperate you need eggs for. So it would reflect that, and if this was like a demand curve, um, think of it more like, so to illustrate this concept, let me go back to this. So let's go to market demand. Right? There we go. So for aggregate demand, we're essentially going to sum up the total number of units that will be purchased by a group of end consumers at a given price. So instead of looking at just one, we're saying that for these video games or eggs, let's say these are eggs, we're saying that at a price of um, let's let me see if I can make this a little more accurate. So probably what do you think the max consensus is? What do we think the max price for, like, the way you want to think of a demand curve is this p-axis is like the highest price that somebody would pay for eggs. So somebody somebody might pay $100 for eggs, right? Or who knows? Let's say that let's I mean, I don't know. Let's just use it as an example. I bet there's someone in, like, the Hollywood Hills that's like, I gotta have my eggs. Yeah.
Bodybuilder, dragon.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say that this $100, there's like one individual who would pay that, but most people would. That's ridiculous, right? But then as the price goes down, you see more people buy it. Like price goes down to somewhere down here, like, let's see if I can. Okay, so that's better there. So we can see that um as the price goes down to like $5, there's a lot more people that would buy it and so on, and then zero. So the way that you want to think of it before is, let's say you were expecting to pay $5, and essentially like 190 people buy the dozen eggs, and then let's say the price goes up to $25, right? A lot of people are not going to buy the eggs because they've gone up instantly, and I bet that, so you see, like, the price goes up, less people buy it, right? Now, during like a COVID situation with time, um, the price did go up. I don't want to say instantly, but the price went up from like $2 to $6. And initially, I bet there were some people who were like, "I'm not going to buy these eggs. This is crazy. Going to come back down." Now, over the course of 5 years, it's been so since COVID. Um, Prices haven't really come down. Hopefully, the like household incomes have gone up a bit, and expectations have changed. And now there's more people willing to pay that kind of market price of $6. But think of this curve more like, if things change, you got to redo the curve. Like, if it's a year later, if it's during COVID, if you get more income, you'd probably be willing to buy more eggs, stuff like that. So it's more of an instantaneous snapshot of like, assume everyone goes to the grocery store and is going to buy these eggs, and then all of a sudden the clerk's like, "Maybe these eggs are now $10." It's pretty. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to assume that with a drastic price increase, um, a lot of consumers wouldn't buy it on the spot. Also, if the store's like, we gotta get rid of these eggs, there's chickens in the batter's box, eggs are now 50 cents. What's gonna happen? They're gonna all sell out, right? So it works the other way too. So I think that's the way to think of it is there are, it's pretty clear that like if there's an instant price change, lower it, more people buy it, or raise it, less people buy it. Now, things change over time, like COVID, and then now all of a sudden the market price of eggs is $6. So then we're starting from there, kind of thing. So did that answer your paradox?
Yeah. Thank you.
Here. Okay. Okay, now, next slide is on pricing. So we've already learned before. Uh, minimize, oops. All right, so we've already learned before that marginal revenue and marginal costs determine how you should think about producing and not producing. So we learned that when marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, like the next unit sold, that means that another unit sold would give you more revenue than it costs to produce it. So the recommendation would be to do it. Whereas if the next unit sold, you got less revenue than the cost to produce it, uh, that's probably a bad choice, given other circumstances, because you're getting less to sell it than it costs to produce it. Now, the same thing can be just directly correlated to price, where you'd want to, assuming you have direct control of your price, sometimes you don't, but think that same logic, and if marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, right? You sell one more unit, you go back to the eggs, you sell one more dozen of eggs, the revenue you get is more than the cost to produce it. Then what you're gonna wanna do is reduce the price, right? Because you're essentially going down the demand curve. So what this comment means is going back to this is, let's say you're here at a, I made this, let's say you're here at a price of $5. If you determine that going to $4 gives you more revenue than the cost of producing, then you want to do that, right? Now, if the opposite is true, if it's costing more to produce it, what you want to do is actually increase the price, which is equivalent to going this way along the demand curve and reducing quantity. Now, it's kind of this double check situation, and obviously it makes sense in theory, but it's hard to know, especially if you have a grocery store, you have all these products. Sometimes you reduce price, you sell more. You reduce price too much, then you're not making your profit. But you also want to cover your like input costs. So it's a tough, back and forth to know exactly what to do. But the concept is pretty clear. Is uh, don't produce more if it costs you more than to sell it, and produce more if it doesn't. Yes. Okay. Then we learned in one of the other chapters that the optimal price, or I guess we learned the optimal quantity was where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And that's also going to be the optimal price, essentially where if you're at that price on the demand curve, um, selling more would decrease your profit, and selling less would also. So you kind of hit the sweet spot, which is difficult to find, but we'll come more on the marginal cost aspect when we talk about the supply curve, which we haven't done yet. So, all right. Now, time to get into the one of the main concepts that you're probably familiar with in theory or podcasting, but haven't. I'm not sure how much we dove into elasticity, but this is going to be a big concept for kind of the rest of the chapter, and we'll learn about how different demand curves should be treated differently based on their responsiveness to price. And the first thing is just to define elasticity. And so elasticity of demand, the little e is the notation. It's just the percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in price. So we're looking at how responsive quantity demand it is to a change in price. So what this means is like, if price goes up 5%, what happens to demand? All right, if price goes down 10%, what happens to demand? We're looking at how any change in price leads to a different responsiveness in demand. All right, so it seems pretty simple, um, but it'll get a little more.
Yeah, Professor, this one change of price, meaning if the price changes, so people now they be like willing to buy more or inclined to say, I'm not gonna buy anymore. Right?
Well, that's a good question. So that, I guess, so this relationship is always going to be negative. So anytime the price goes up, uh, unless it's some, there might be some exceptions, like, yeah, maybe the price of some like Monet goes up and someone's like, now I gotta have it because it's now 1.2 billion or something like. But those things are not normal goods. So most things, if the price goes up, demand goes down, and if the price goes down, demand goes up. So we already know that. This is taking a deeper dive, saying like, if the price goes down by 10%, how much does demand go up? And if the price goes up by 5%, how much does demand go down? We know the direction. Now we're trying to figure out the responsiveness, because this would have a big effect on if you know the effect of a price change on what your consumers will do, then that will help you determine like, should I lower the price? Should I increase the price? If my competitor increases the price, do I do something, kind of thing? So when we start talking about like elastic versus inelastic, it'll make sense to see like, oh, I see why that good doesn't change as much. And I see what this one does. Yeah. So just in terms of the concept, we're looking at a negative relationship that we talked about on the demand curve, and how demand changes in response to price. And that's the main thing there. Yeah.
And then are there degrees to?
There are degrees.
Okay,
There are
like
degrees.
I'm going back into the archives from econ. Like
Yeah,
tobacco and alcohol. People still buy it if the prices go up. I mean, in general, I don't know if that's changed.
that's correct. So that would be something you've foreshadowed in elastic. So that's probably a good example of when the price goes up, you would still think demand would go down, but not as much as the price change. So perhaps like the price of cigarettes goes up 10%, demand goes down 1%. So you're always gonna get some people, maybe like I mean, in almost every case, if the price goes up enough, someone's not gonna buy it.
Yeah.
But for a good like cigarettes, or alcohol, when there's, a core group of consumers, they'll pay a little bit more, probably pay a lot more, but there's always some people on the margin that like, a pack of cigarettes goes up. It's, I don't know, how much is a pack of cigarettes now? $10?
I think it's like $10, yeah.
Yeah. So it should, I mean, I want to say it's gone up from like $5 to $10 in 20 years, which is quite a bit, but I, I think some things have gone up more, right? Yeah. But yeah,
My Edison bill. That was a low one.
yeah, no, my Edison bills guy. Even though I work there, I still have to pay my bill, and it goes up quite a bit in the summer because yeah, it's hot.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you can say a product is inelastic or elastic, but there's degrees to that.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So right. So if this is the first claim, or the first definition, if you will, is if this, and the reason I put these absolute value brackets around is because normally you report these elasticities in just the number term without the negative, but just know that elasticity is always negative, because as you point out, we're always looking at a negative relationship based on the demand curve. But if you remove the negative, it makes it a little bit easier just to talk about. So essentially, if the absolute value of the elasticity is bigger than one, you would call demand elastic. And that would mean that the change in price, the percent change in price is bigger than the percent change, sorry, the percent change in quantity is bigger than the percent change in price. So all we know here is that if the price goes up by a certain percent, the demand goes up by more than that change. So demand is responding more than the price change, right? Now there's degrees of that, but just to understand the concept. So all we have here is percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in price. Okay? So if this goes up 10% and this goes up 15%, it has to be bigger than one. It's just this divided by that, right? Now, the other way around it is if it is less than one, then we call it inelastic because that means that the percent change in price is bigger than the percent change in quantity. So just flip it around, like price goes up by 10%, demand goes down by 1%. Okay, so this, numerator denominator has to be less than one just based on the way it's calculated.
So what is that really telling us?
It's telling us that if there's a price change, are the consumers changing a lot or not changing at all? So just like your example of cigarettes, you know as a cigarette or alcohol dealer that you can change the price. You're probably not going to lose too many consumers. But if you change the price of something that has a lot of options, as we'll get into, then you might lose a ton of consumers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I had it
Well-
explained so in detail and a simple brain is. I think I know what it means in theory, but.
We'll look at some graphs. We'll
Okay.
think of some examples and it'll make more sense. But just to understand the concept is first. Okay. So, let's focus on just elastic demand, all right? So elastic demand, by definition means that calculation is bigger than one. Quantity changes more than price. We still know that when price goes up, demand goes down, or vice versa. But the percent that price goes up is bigger than the percent that quantity goes down, or vice versa. So, and then if we look at, I'm gonna pull up the Excel thing again, but essentially what this means, if you determine that the price is elastic, that increasing the price would decrease revenue, which makes total sense because if you know that the quantity changes more than price, then dropping the price, you would lose more consumers than the price, right? And then decreasing the price would increase your revenue because the consumers are changing more than the price did, right? So it's a tricky way of thinking about where you are on like the demand curve. And so why don't I go back to this example? Okay, and so this was actually the one I, let's see if I can go back before I started talking about eggs. There we go. Got a little bit back function. Okay, so what I've done here is just made up a hypothetical elastic demand curve. All right, so I just, all I did was just make up some quantities, make up some prices. And I don't know what this good is. We can think of some examples of elastic. What I wanted to illustrate is that elastic demand curves are a little more flat as opposed to steep. And for the most part, that's because like when you change the price, demand goes up by quite a bit. So what this shows is that let's see. Okay, now another thing to consider when we get to it is that the elasticity of the curve would it can change along the demand curve. So what that means is there's always going to be like a portion towards the left part that's elastic, and there's always going to be a portion that's inelastic. It's just a matter of where are we on that curve and how steep is it? But in general, a flatter curve would be more elastic and a steeper curve would be more inelastic, right? Because you're showing that in a flatter curve, when you drop the price, there's a much bigger increase in demand and vice versa. So what I did here is, um, actually I can do this just so you can understand. Okay, so if you're interested in, doing a little example, just to understand the concept, I'm just making a quantity column and a price column, and then elasticity column, and then I'm calling this delta total revenue because that would be the change in revenue from point to point. So just for now, just focus on quantity and price. So it doesn't really matter what numbers we put in. The only thing that matters is we want to illustrate a scenario that when price goes down, demand changes more than that percentage, right? And so you can see that clearly, like, if price goes down $5, demand goes up 10, or if price goes down $5, demand goes up 10. So I'm just showing that the responsive demand is bigger than the responsive price. Okay? Now this could be any number of scenarios. We could think of, so we'll start with 0 for quantity. What's an example of an elastic good? Like what's something that when the price changes, you would think demand responds more than the price change? It's probably most things you say is gonna be right, but not necessarily. So. Oops, I'm sorry. Um, any ideas? What's an example of an elastic?
Movie.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. Movie tickets. So I'm just gonna put that and I'll explain why. Just gonna put a little. So movie tickets would probably be a really good example of something that's elastic. Remember we're on the elastic tab. Okay. And the reason why is because you're talking about like theater tickets, right? You go to the AMC kind of thing. Yeah. So movie tickets, let's say that the cost to go to a movie is $15. Um, and let's say you check online and go to like reserve your seat. All of a sudden it's like $50. Uh,
It wouldn't surprise me if that were the case.
yeah. So if you plan on going to the movies like that day, you're probably gonna be like, unless I really want to see this movie, I'm not gonna finish it. I'm just gonna go on Netflix and watch something that's training. Or I'm gonna go, we're gonna watch a sports game. We're gonna watch, do something else, right? There's lots of options other than going to the movies, right? I like going to the movies. Um, would I pay $100 to do it? No, I wouldn't. So because there's lots of things you could do otherwise than movie tickets, that's a good example of something that's elastic, right? So that's why you probably see that most movie tickets there's a lot of movie theaters. The tickets are kind of in the same range, right? And you can maybe pay a little more, or maybe there's a matinee, but you're probably not gonna see a movie for $1.
Depending on your seat,
Yeah, but you're probably not gonna pay more than $30, right? Unless it's like, it's usually within that like $10 to maybe $20, depending on if it's an IMAX or something, but for the most part, it seems like they're pretty competitive because they wanna cover their costs, but they don't want, the AMC doesn't want you to go to Limely if if they raise their price too much, they're gonna lose too many customers. So, all right. So let's say this is like market demand um for movie tickets. Let's say this is just Laverne. So let's say that at a price of um let's say that a price of $55, no one goes. That's too much, right? let's say that a price of $50, maybe. And what I want to show is the change in price. Maybe, no, that's too many. How many people in Laverne would see a $50 movie? Not very many, right? Let's just say one. I don't know, some guy or somehow some family. There we go. All right, and then at a price of $45, you probably get a few more. I don't know, 10. But then as the price, keeps dropping, 40. Let me just. It's all the way down to zero. Oops. Yeah, price of 40, we're probably getting. Actually, I need to show that that's bigger than the change. So let's say that's 10. Say that's also 20. Let's say that's 30. And it's possible that when we get to like the 35 range, we're getting it's some more people. And then here's about the market range. So let's say we get like 100 people here and 200. A lot of people would pay for sorry, this 10, 20, 30, 40, 100, 200. And then at 20, people are gonna see that. At $15, maybe we get, 2,000. Um, and then at $10, maybe we get 5,000. At $5, you're getting the whole town to go. Hey, it's all right. And then this is that's zero. This I guess you can think of a price of zero as being like it seems dumb, but like some people still wouldn't go because let's say that like it was I mean you still have to go. There's still a time cost. There's still like
It would be my dad, he wouldn't go, even if it were free.
yeah, if it's something you don't, if it's free tickets to go see like uh the Smurf movie, I don't know if I would go. I mean, I might, but not necessarily. So there'd probably be a lot of people that went, but not a lot. Now, if I did a little graph of this, you could do if you're doing this on your own. I'm just gonna do insert and usually like oh no, right during my example. What's going on here? Um, my Excel doc freaked out. No, I was just saved it. I mean, so this is working fine. Maybe not. I think we still have. All right, let's see what happens here. Oh, let's see. Version from 8 to 9:30. Yeah, maybe it's it. Let's see if it's saved fun. Look at that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Now let's save this. I should probably. All right. Okay. Pretty good. Let's, so what I was gonna do is do a quick little graph of our quantities of movie tickets and prices, which are inverse. So I select all these, I just do insert recommended charts. And then I'll just do the scatter one because it usually comes out pretty low. I'll hit OK. All right, and this is a little bit different than the other one, but you can see that illustrates the downwards relationship between price and quantity. And then when price goes down for the higher prices, it's just I'll do one more thing. It was a yeah, it's getting a scatter one. So this is our make a note that this if you wanted to like let's call this demand for your lead signals. Okay. Okay. This is the price and this is the quantity, but just if you wanted to mentally see that, there should be a little if you're doing this on your let me know if you have like a if you're using a Mac, it's a little bit different sometimes, but I can troubleshoot with that. But on those again. Okay, on Windows, if you hit this little plus sign, there should be an option for axes labels. And what that means is you can just call this price. And you can call this quantity. Okay. All right, well, there should be an option to do that on Apple too. I just if you need any help with that, you might want to do like I think it's like chart design, add chart element, and then axes titles. Yeah, if you want to chart design, add chart element, and axes titles, and you either one, you click on it, it should let you. It should do it. Okay. So,
The other one.
oh, did it?
Oh, yeah, I got it.
You gotta put the axes. Okay, everything's still there. All right, so what I want to show you next before this is so this little column is going to be elasticity, and the way we calculate elasticity is going to be the percent change in. So we know that when the price goes down, more people buy it, right? But we see that when the price goes down a lot more people buy it. But in most cases here, it seems like the responsiveness is more people buy it than the price change. So let me calculate elasticity from going from, so we started with the price of 55, which no one buys, all right? And then we decrease the price $5, and then 10 people buy it, right? So I can write a simple formula, kind of simple, that shows the percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in price, right? So in column O3, I'm just gonna say equals. I want to do the percent change in quantity first, which is essentially, I'm gonna do like double parentheses to make the top one separate. Okay, so it is 10 minus 0, close parentheses, divided by 0, or M3 minus M2 divided by M2. So it's the change over the original, which is just the percent change, right? Then divided by the price change, which is another double parenthesis, but this is going to be a decrease. So it's 50 minus 55 parentheses divided by 55. Okay, so what I'm just calculating is the percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in price when price goes down from 55 to 50. Okay, and that should give you um, okay. The reason why it didn't work is because it's got the 0. So just if you started with this one instead, so the change of going from 50 to 45 is the quantity goes up from 10 to 20. All right, so that means that um, the change in quantity, 10 minus 20 minus 10 over 10, divided by the change in price, 45 minus 50 over 50, would give you a negative number, but show the responsiveness. So this is just the elasticity of the price going from 50 to 45, and the percent change of this compared to the percent change of this, right? So is the elasticity of going from, when the price goes from 50 to 45, is demand inelastic or elastic? Elastic, right? Because more people bought it than the change in price. So the change in price, otherwise it would be like a negative. If it's less than one, -1, then it's gonna be inelastic, right? But in absolute value, this is right. See, price only went up. What here? Oh, the price went up. The price went down. Price went down 10%, right? And then quantity went up. Um, 100%, right? So we know that if the percent change in quantity is bigger than the percent change in price, it has to be elastic, right? And this specific elasticity is -10 or um or 10 if you remove the sign. Okay? Yeah? Any hope? Is it your calculation or is it the calculation or the
I'm
constant?
so far behind you right now.
Well, I'm just illustrating the example, but. I'll post this on the website. I'll try to start recording, but
Recording in progress.
It's, I got the backwards graph, but.
no, that didn't work. Yeah, I think the recording is not. We'll have to stop it.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Oh. All right. There we go. Get back to the. Please stop. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I stopped. I think there was a request to record, and for some reason it's not. I'm having too much like space issue, so I had to stop it. But just a FYI. All right. So let's share again. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Back to our example. What I was illustrating is the elasticity of changing from point to point. All right. So it's okay. All right. So we got the elasticity of going from a price of 50 to 45, which is -10. Now the good news is you don't have to do the same formula over and over. You can just take it like this. And I take the bottom right corner and I drag it down like that. That's going to give you the elasticity of going from different quantities. And what you can see, I made this up, so this one is that each time we go from a price of 50 to 45, a price of 45 to 40, I've illustrated that the change in quantity percent is always bigger than the change in price. So demand is always elastic for this bit, right? Now, there'd probably be some portions where that wasn't the case, but as long as this number is bigger than -1, that's gonna mean it's elastic because the percent change in price, which is always, as the way it laid it up, 10%, is less than the change in quantity, right? So that means that this good movie tickets is elastic if any portion of this demand. Okay, and the reason why is because of the things we discussed. And also think of it as going the other way too. So if the price goes, from $5 to $10, we lose a significant amount of customers due to the price increase and so on. So what this shows is movie tickets, when the price goes up by a certain percent, the demand goes down by a higher percent. And when the price goes down by a certain percent, the quantity demanded goes up by more than that percent. All right. Make sense? Aside from the technical difficulties. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to show you is that based on what we know, if the demand, if like basically it looks like every time the price drops, this good is still elastic, right? And so that would tell us from our little rule of thumb that we want to keep dropping the price because it should be increasing our revenue, right? If we know that more people come buy the tickets, than we're losing in the price change, that should increase our revenue. So let me see if I can show a little example. So let's say that, we'll calculate revenue from going from here to here. And then we'll calculate revenue from going from here to here. And what we should see, unless I mess this up, is that, the revenue should be increasing as we keep lowering the price. Because we're getting more customers than we lose in the price percent change. Okay, so, before I do delta TR, let me insert one more column called total revenue. Okay. So the total revenue is pretty simple. It's just the price of the good times how much we sell, right? So in the total revenue column, this is just equal to the Q column times the P column. If we don't sell any, we're gonna get 0. But if we sell 50 tickets at 10 customers, that's $500, and so on. Until we sell, you know, 100,000 customers buy $5. All right. So that's our revenue. Now you can see that our revenue is going up, every time. That doesn't necessarily mean that, like, we should keep decreasing the price, although in this case it is. What you want to look at is the change in revenue. So let's look at the change in revenue of going from, a $50 ticket to a $45 ticket. Okay, so that change in revenue would be, 900 minus 500. So at $50, you got $500. At $45, you got 900. So you get an extra 400 by dropping the price. Now, what if I went to a $40 ticket? Okay, a $40 ticket would give me an extra revenue of $300, right? Because, originally it was 900 and now it's 1,200. So what you should see is that as long as your change in revenue is increasing, it represents the fact where dropping the price increases your revenue. So let's do another one. Right, you get an extra 200. Okay, so each time you're on your elastic portion of the demand curve, if you drop your price, you should increase your revenue, and vice versa will do with the inelastic situation. So this was kind of a makeshift example, but I wanted to illustrate a elastic demand curve, which is for movie tickets because there are lots of options. I wanted to illustrate how to calculate elasticity, in Excel by doing the percent change in quantity over the percent change in price. Total revenue, we already learned that a few weeks ago, but it's just how much of this good you sell times the price, and then know that if the good is elastic over a price change, you should be able to increase your revenue by selling more or dropping the price and selling more. Okay. So questions?
It's a good formula for,
Elasticity?
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Checking.
Yeah, I'll see if I can. It's, yeah, go ahead, I'll leave it up there. It's probably the parentheses that are messing you up because. It's really like about to, one of those fans. Doesn't do this at home. You know,
Did you start that equal or that a minus sign?
It's just equals, yeah. Work?
No.
No? Here, I can. Um,
They say that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Okay, everybody good on the Zoom? Any questions?
No questions. I'm good. Thank you.
All right, so why don't I move on to the next thing, which was, I think, elastic demand, somewhere. Okay. Back to my few slides. Okay, so I believe we left off here on the elastic one. All right, so we learned elastic. Now let's do a little example with inelastic. Okay. So inelastic demand, we know that the 20% change in quantity is um, smaller than the percent change in price. Quantity change is less than price, and that increase in price would increase revenue, the opposite of the previous case, because the consumer doesn't leave as much, consumers, and then decrease in price would decrease revenue. So it's essentially the opposite of what we just did, but the concept to evaluate it will be the same. So let me go back to graphs here. All right. So why don't we do a quick example of an inelastic grid on the second tab, which I've already started, but so first, why don't we think of an example of what an inelastic bid might be? So something where price changes more than the changing point. So if the price goes up, you lose some consumers, but the percent change is smaller than the percent change in price. And vice versa, if the price went down, you gain a little more consumers, but the change, the responsiveness of demand is less than the responsiveness of price.
Yeah.
Gasoline, exactly, yeah, so gasoline. Okay, this is an example of a inelastic good. Alright, um, yeah, the reason is, there aren't a lot of substitutes for gasoline, right? If you have a vehicle and you go to the pump, and your car takes gasoline, there's not a lot of options you can do to put into your car that aren't gasoline. So if the price goes up from, $5 to $7, you're probably not gonna like it, but you don't really have a lot of options. Now, that might change in the long run, if people get electric vehicles or take public transit or get a bike or, you know, if the price goes up too much, but because there aren't any alternatives for a gas car to make the car go than gasoline, you would see that, and this is pretty much true in theory, when the price of gas goes up, most consumers still buy it because they have to. They have the car, they don't have another option. And the same thing with if they drop the price and vice versa. So there aren't a lot of subsidies for gasoline, which would make it less responsive to the price. So if I were to graph something like this, I could show that this is we can just use this example here. So let's say that at a price of $100 per gallon, nobody buys it, right? At a price of 95, maybe let's say this is like LA County. So someone might buy it for $95 a gallon, but what you see is when the price keeps going down, more people buy it, but it's not a huge jump. And then the same thing is going from $5 to $10. The consumers aren't going to like that change, but I bet a lot of consumers would still pay $10 a gallon because that's the only option. Now, things could change in the long run, but you probably see that all these price increases, if there were so, for gasoline, you would lose a few customers. Some people might get pissed and just walk. But because there's nothing you can put into your car to make it go as a gasoline car, other than gasoline, you probably still see most consumers buy it. So in most cases, the price change would be more responsive than the quantity change. Okay? Now, let's call this. And I just made a hypothetical numbers earlier and graphed it, but same concept. Just in this case, it's the curve. What you should notice is that the elastic curve should be relatively flatter than the inelastic curve, because this illustrates that less people leave when you change the price. Okay? Let's call this the demand for gasoline. Okay, so I can do the same illustration to show you elasticity and revenue and total revenue changing, and you'll see something different. And that in most cases, the elasticity is less than one, and in most cases, the consumer is going to want to increase the price to increase revenue because less consumers leave. Right? So why don't I do this example again? Call this elasticity. All right. So we know that we'll start here in column C4 because we put in a zero, it's going to give us an error again. But this is the same calculation from before, right? So to calculate elasticity of the price of gasoline going from 95 to 90, we would just do equals, oops, double parenthesis, 5 minus 2.5, parentheses divided by 2.5, parenthesis for the top argument, and then divided by the percent change in price, double parenthesis, 90 minus 95, parenthesis, divided by 95. Okay? So percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in price, and going from a price of 95 to 90. And we get -19. So what you see is that in the upper portions, the demand curve for gasoline might be elastic because um, it- with those high prices, you might get a bigger swing. So then if I apply this down, what you're gonna see is that the elasticity changes at some point around here. Because the reason why is because once you get to extreme levels, actually, this worked out well, for example. Because, so here's our, so at $45, we're going from 50 to 45. The elasticity is about 1, it's like a 1 for 1. And then when the consumer starts charging, not the consumer, the gas station, starts charging like $50, $55. That's like out of scope for most people, and they're gonna start leaving. So once the price gets up, if you're increasing it 10 times, lose a lot of customers. But for the most part, if it goes from $5 to $10, you lose 1 or 2 customers, but you have the same amount. So down in this range and something, within the realm of what somebody would pay, increasing the price, the change in price is less than the change in customers that leave. But at some point, it becomes way too expensive and people start leaving, right? So what that means is that in this range, it's inelastic. And then in this range, it's elastic. Because you're looking at the percent change, right? And then in this, I guess going from 50 to 45, you essentially get a 1-for-1 offset. Where there's usually a point on the demand curve where the percent change in price is the same as the percent change in quantity. It's like going from 50 to 45, right? So if I were to calculate revenue changes in this region, it's best to lower price. And if I were to calculate revenue changes in this region, it's best to increase price because you're not losing any consumers. So if I were to calculate total revenue, let's just do it from just to illustrate the concept. So let's say that we're pricing at $50. We want to check increasing the price to 55. So at a price of 50, your revenue is just 25 times 50, right? And at a price of 55, your revenue is 23.5 times 55. Okay, so you can see that like if you increase the price from 50 to 55, what happens to your revenue? It goes down. Oops, let me remove it. Oh, because we're on the other way. So if I go from 50 to 55, my new revenue is that, my old revenue was this. Okay? So I just lost $12.50 by increasing the price. And if I did it again, right? Okay, you see going from 55 to 60, we're losing another $40, right? So anywhere in this lavender range, increasing the price you're gonna lose money because there's too many people leaving and the price is too high. Right, the recommendation is not to keep increasing price. You know, no one's gonna pay $90 a gallon, right? Now, if you're in this range though, if you increase them from 5 to 10, it's not very nice, but you're probably gonna still get most of the consumers. So in this area, here's our quantity. Here's our price. All right, and let's say we increase to $10. So all right, so the change in revenue, you can see the change, but the change is going from 450 to 237 to 450. We got another $200. Let's say we increase it again. Okay, what happens? You get another $187. So what this tells you is that if you can estimate your elasticity of the price change, that would tell you what you want to do with your price. If if increasing the price is costing you revenue, you probably want to lower the price. Now, if it's something like gasoline and, you know, we're not factoring in cost yet, so I don't know what the cost of production are going from, you know, $5 to $10. Maybe you can't store all the oil or the gas, or, you know, maybe there's supply constraints. But in theory, if the gas station could raise their price, in small amounts, they wouldn't lose many customers because there's no substitutes, and they'd likely increase their profit, right? For the rep, not the profit. But this is Delta rep. Okay. Questions on this?
You're gonna upload it on DBA.
Yeah, assuming it doesn't crash. It's saving for now. I don't know why there's so many ones. Yeah. Okay, should we take a quick break?
Yes.
No, all right. Okay, so it's 10 o'clock. What do you want to come back at 10:15 or 10:20?
Right.
That's fine. We need a 10-minute break.
Need it back at.
All right, Zoom students, we're gonna take a quick break and resume at 10:20.